Imagine it's 1932 in Macon County, Alabama. You're a poor sharecropper, and a man from the government, a doctor, offers you and your neighbors free health care for life. All you have to do is let them treat you for what they call bad blood. The treatments are strange, sometimes just pills, other times painful spinal taps. But you trust them. Years pass, decades. You get sicker. Your friends die. The doctors just take notes. For 40 years, you believe you're receiving care from your own government. You never learn the truth. You are not a patient. You are an untreated subject in the longest, most infamous medical experiment in American history.
That wasn't a hypothetical for 40 years. From 1932 to 1972, the United States Public Health Service conducted the Tuskegee Study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male.
The study enrolled 600 African American men from Alabama. 399 of them had syphilis. The government doctors watched them suffer, go blind, go insane, and die, all while actively preventing them from getting a cure that existed.
So, just to be clear, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy fact. This is the episode where the call is actually coming from inside the house.
To understand how this happened, you have to go back to Macon County, Alabama, in 1932. This was the heart of the Great Depression. It was a deeply impoverished rural area where the majority of residents were black sharecroppers with virtually no access to medical care.
The USPHS had been involved in a short-term project to treat syphilis in the area. When the funding ran out, the researchers, led by figures like Dr. Taliaferro Clark, saw an opportunity. Instead of treating the men, they decided to study them to see what would happen if the disease was left to run its course.
To gain the community's trust, the USPS partnered with the respected Tuskegee Institute, a historically black college. They also hired a local black nurse, Eunice Rivers, who became the study's main point of contact for the men for decades.
So they used a trusted black institution and a trusted black nurse to sell a lie to a bunch of poor black men. That's not just unethical, that's diabolical. It's like using a fire department to sell gasoline.
Exactly. The men were never told they had syphilis. They were told they had bad blood, a vague local term for all sorts of ailments. The incentives weren't much, but to these men they were significant: free physical exams, free rides to the clinic, hot meals, and a burial stipend to cover their funeral costs.
For the first 15 years, as horrible as it was, there was no effective cure for syphilis. But that changed everything in 1947 when penicillin became the standard widely available treatment.
This was the moment the study went from deeply unethical to monstrous. The doctors in charge made a conscious, documented decision to withhold penicillin from the men. They wanted their pure data set of untreated subjects.
They went to extreme lengths to prevent them from getting treatment. They gave lists of the participants to local doctors to ensure they wouldn't be treated. They even prevented some of the men from being drafted for World War II, because a military physical would have revealed and treated the syphilis.
Hold on. They stopped men from fighting in World War II to make sure they stayed sick. That's a level of commitment to an evil plan that you rarely see outside of a James Bond movie.
For decades, this continued in plain sight within the medical community. Papers were published using the data. But in 1966, a USPHS venereal disease investigator in San Francisco named Peter Buxton got wind of it and filed an official protest.
His superiors ignored him. They decided the study was too valuable to stop. So Buxton did it again in 1968. Again, he was shut down. Finally, in 1972, he leaked the entire story to a reporter for the Associated Press, Jean Heller.
Heller's story, published on July 25, 1972, was a bombshell. The public was horrified. Senator Edward Kennedy immediately convened congressional hearings where PHS officials were forced to testify and defend their actions.
Within months, an advisory panel recommended the study be stopped immediately. By the time it ended in October 1972, at least 28 men had died directly of syphilis. Another 100 had died of related complications. 40 of their wives had been infected, and 19 children had been born with congenital syphilis.
Let's lay it out. First, it is absolutely confirmed that the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a 40-year experiment on 399 black men with syphilis, promising treatment, but providing none. It is also confirmed that the men never gave informed consent and were actively deceived, being told they were treated for bad blood, while painful diagnostic tests were framed as special treatment.
Critically, it is confirmed that after penicillin became the standard cure in 1947, the USPHS deliberately withheld it from the participants to continue gathering data on the untreated disease.
Now, for a crucial distinction. A common belief is that the government infected the men with syphilis. This is not true for the Tuskegee study. The men were recruited because they already had the disease.
It feels like a weird distinction to have to make. We didn't give them the deadly disease. We just watched them die from it and stopped anyone else from curing them. That's not exactly a winning legal defense.
Casey's right to point that out. But the distinction matters because the same group of researchers did intentionally infect people in Guatemala in the 1940s, a separate horror story. For Tuskegee, the sin was deception and non-treatment.
The legacy of Tuskegee is profound, and it goes far beyond the men and their families. It is one of the most frequently cited reasons for medical mistrust among African Americans.
And that mistrust is a direct, measurable barrier to public health. Studies have shown its impact on everything from vaccination rates to participation in clinical trials.
Yeah, you can't exactly run a 40-year death watch and then act surprised when people don't want to sign up for your next free health program.
This wasn't a fringe group. This was the U.S. government, working with a respected Black university. It demonstrates how systemic racism can operate within trusted institutions, cloaked in the language of scientific inquiry.
That's the core of it. This wasn't hidden in a basement. It was published in medical journals. The data was presented at conferences. It was sanctioned, reviewed, and approved for decades by people who saw nothing wrong.
It's the world's most evil open mic night. The act is horrifying, but nobody tells the guy to get off the stage. It's the ultimate, the call is coming from inside the house. People wonder why Terry's distrust. Because the one time the government showed up offering free healthcare, it was a 40-year death watch.
It poisoned the well for generations. Every future public health initiative in communities like Macon County would be viewed through the lens of that betrayal.
The exposure of the study did lead to sweeping reforms. The National Research Act of 1974 created the modern requirement for institutional review boards, or ERBs, to protect human subjects in experiments.
So the entire ethical framework we have for medical research today was built on the ashes of this tragedy. And much later, in 1997, President Bill Clinton delivered a formal apology to the handful of survivors who were still alive. The Tuskegee study wasn't a secret society or a hidden cabal. It was a government program, with published papers and official budgets.
So it's less of a conspiracy theory and more of a conspiracy transparency report. They just put it all out there and nobody blinked.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most terrible things aren't hidden in the shadows. They're happening in plain sight and are just ignored by those with the power to stop them.
It stands as a permanent, painful lesson in the history of medical ethics, and a testament to the courage of a whistleblower who refused to stay silent.
Next week, we're tackling a very different kind of conspiracy. One born on the internet. We're examining Chanon, how an anonymous 4chan post about a storm grew into a global movement that challenged reality itself.
We think it's important to tell these stories, the real ones and the fake ones, to understand how they work. If you agree, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's next.